Welcome again to the Seven Voice podcast. I'm your host, Aziz Adesanya, and we have a very special guest today on this episode. It's someone that has actually saved my clients a lot of money. And I'm talking about Mr. Garry. He's an home inspector, and he has always helped my client. We always do an inspection through him. I want him to have a conversation with us today to tell us what are the advantages of doing home inspection and probably share a little bit of his journey and story with us. Thank you so much today, Mr. Garry, for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
Do you want to tell my audience how long you've been doing home inspection? Because I said you've saved my clients a lot of money, and that's true.
Yeah. I just received my 15-year PIN from InterNACHI.
Wow.
So 15 years.
You've been in the business for 15 years.
Yeah.
You must have seen a lot of things while you're doing the home inspection.
Yeah, we've talked in the past, and as you know, I have a building background, and I feel strongly that any inspector should have a fairly strong degree of building construction. They got to know what they're doing.
Why would that be important, actually?
If you don't know how a house is built, and we do have a lot of areas. So, we have a lot of century homes, and that's one that I specialize in. I actually love doing century homes, just the beauty of it. But if you don't know how a home is put together, it's kind of hard to inspect and know potentially some of the problems that may exist. And in a lot of times a customer will ask them what year, do they know the year that the house was built? And just by telling the year, for example, 70s, I think everybody knows houses in the 70s possibly have aluminum wiring.
Yes.
And we could talk about aluminum wiring, but we could talk an hour about that. But if you said the 80s, well, in the 80s, they were notorious for not putting bedroom lights, ceiling lights.
Okay.
The bathrooms, no fans and stuff like that. So by knowing the year, plastered houses, were the 40s, 50s, even in the 60s. Whether there's all kinds of things. There's vermiculite, which may contain asbestos. Those houses again, the 50s, the 60s, and sometimes the 70s. So by knowing before you even go there, you have an idea of some of the things that you may run into. So that's why it's good to have, a background.
A background of that.
When you're as old as I am, you probably, built some of those homes.
That's true.
Or did renovations on them. So it's definitely an asset.
To have that.
And if I was going to hire an inspector,
okay.
I would want somebody that was fluent in all aspects of building a house.
Okay, and you've been doing home inspection for 15 years. What are the things you think have changed in terms of people coming into the industry, your industry, to become an home inspector? What are the things you think at that time when you started, those are very important, and right now, people that are getting into the business, has anything changed at all?
Probably everything's changing all the time. Technology. So homes are now smart.
Okay.
Homes are high efficient. So you hear the terminology of a sick house.
What is a sick house?
Well, a house, my grandparents' farmhouse, if you put a candle on the kitchen table, it would blow out.
Oh,
I'm just saying. But that's kind of the way you look at it. And the reason is the air exchange from the outside to the inside was high. You would feel the wind on a windy winter day blowing through the windows.
Okay.
So you're getting a lot of fresh air. You're getting a lot of fresh oxygen. Today, the houses are built so airtight that everything gives off a gas. So if you have rugs, wood, cupboards, everything gives off an off gas. And depending on the individual's health, they may or may not affect the health of an individual. So what they do now is they put the air exchangers in them, so it brings in fresh air, and it pushes out the old air, and it's through an exchanger, so you do a heat transfer, so you don't lose all your heat or air conditioning. Okay.
So technology is one of the things that you think have changed in the industry, the way.
Well, technology has changed the industry. Houses are much better as far as efficiency, but that has a negative in the sense of the houses now are too airtight, and that's so good. So you have, would I have an air exchanger? Absolutely. I think they're a good thing to have. Now, you kind of alluded to a little bit with inspectors coming into the business. I get calls, not every day, but I get enough calls from people that somehow get a hold of my number or through agents, know somebody that wants to get a home inspection. And I said, have them give me a call, and I usually spend, half hour with them, and I usually say, why, you're looking to get into the home inspection industry. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How many years have you worked in the building industry? And some will say, I haven't. Well, you may want to reconsider.
Okay.
Because if it's a tight market, and if an individual is buying a house or an agent is going to hire an inspector, which one do you think they're going to go with? One that has built houses, done in renovations, fluent in electrical, plumbing, building, bricklaying, like everything, every aspect of a house, or somebody that just read a book? And not that they can't, but I would say somebody that's been in the building industry for at least 10 years, and then they decide, what I want to do. So, I started building when I was 20. I'm now 30. I want to, do something, get my own business. Then that would be a good individual to start the process.
Do you think learning from someone like you can speed up that experience for the new home inspectors?
It's a tough one.
Like someone shadowing you, going around with you to know a few things. Would that help to
it would absolutely help, because
bridge that experience of not having building experience or anything?
Yeah, running a home inspection. There's more than just knowing knowledge. So you could be an engineer, you could even know how to build a house, but you may not be successful in being a home inspection because it's only part of it. It's like everything else. You have to market yourself. You have to have, you have to have an a website. You have to get out to the offices. So it's pretty complex. I would say the knowledge and everything is at probably 50% of the business.
I'm going to come back to the part of home inspectors coming into the business now.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation. I know you don't remember this conversation. One of our home inspection in Cambridge, and there are a few things we talk about: population and immigration. I'm going to come back to that to just ask a few questions. But my question is, as an home inspector, what are you looking for when you get to a home? What do you want to see there to be able to tell your client, either the buyer or the sellers, to know that, this is what you need to do now, if it's good or bad?
Should we ask the question, should you have a home inspection?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Why do we need an home inspection?
So I kind of use example. I said, would you buy a car, an old car, without taking it to a mechanic and have it checked over? Regardless if they certify it or not, I think you would feel more comfortable knowing that, are you buying a problem, or are you buying something that's going to take a little bit of work? Well, a house is a little bit bigger investment. Probably
if not the biggest investment, actually.
Other than children, maybe. It is one of the largest investments that you're going to make. And what I find today, and with the house pricing skyrocketing, and hopefully it's going to ease off a little bit, people sometimes put in everything that they have to come up with the down payment and to purchase the house.
That's true.
They don't need another $50,000
to spend after buying, right?
So high cost. So three things usually I say that people want to be aware of: the roof.
Okay.
Whether or not the roof has to be done, or am I going to get some life out of it. Windows can be quite expensive. Furnace, air conditioning, and then.
What is a good year for a roof for you? Like if the roof is 10 years, do you still think it's still good?
Should be. So builders, we don't get into code. We're not code inspectors.
Okay.
So what I will say is most builders put a 20-year shingle on it.
Okay.
It is not unusual, and this is where knowledge. We could talk forever on it, but it is not unusual for a builder's 20-year shingle roof to be ready to be replaced after 10 years. That's a little bit, but it's not unusual. The average is 15.
Okay.
So would I ever put a 20-year shingle on a roof? Never. And most roofers, I don't believe, would. 25 or 30. But builders are trying to build the house the cost effective,
As much as
and they
possible.
only will do what they need to. Another real quick example, in a bedroom, one window opens
Okay.
in a bedroom. But if you replace the windows, you probably have multiple windows that would open. Why? Because it probably costs $150, $200 for an extra window that would open. And if the builder did that on 1,000 houses that they're building, there's costs. And then they have to add that cost on, and they're trying to sell the house at a
reasonable
lower
price.
cost.
Yeah.
So builders do things that they need to code, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right in that. So going back to, so what I have, the home inspection, absolutely. The value of having a home inspection is two or three things. I kind of break it down to three. One of them is there's a checklist. And I'm going to say almost every home inspection follows the same checklist. So, you know, there's probably 8 different categories. You have the outside, you have electrical, you have plumbing, you have interior, you have the attic, insulation. So we all follow the same thing. The difference is whether or not the person has any idea of what they're looking at. So there's where qualifications come in. The second value of it is the buyer, too many buyers, I think, buy a house where they've gone through the house in an hour, put an offer in, and it's theirs, or it will be theirs shortly. Home inspection usually is a couple hours, could be 3 hours, depending on the complexity, the
size of
size,
the house.
everything. So there's a lot of factors with it. But it allows them to go through the house slower with somewhat of an expert, ask questions, and really get educated on kind of the overall condition of the house. Now, the starting phrase when I meet a buyer, I always say, my job's not to scare you away from a perfectly sound house.
I know, you always say that.
And I say that all the time. And if somebody says, well, what do you mean by that? Every house is going to have defects. New house, old house. So if you want me to come up with 200 defects, scare the pants off you, and you're running down the street not buying the house, I failed. I'm looking for major deficiency.
What are major deficiency?
Sorry?
What are major deficiencies?
Okay, major deficiency would be something safety sometimes.
Okay.
But I kind of peg it at anything over single cost over $1,000.
Okay.
So if you want an example, if one window has a seal leak, and that's going to be $300-400 to fix, it's a minor deficiency in my opinion, and everything's opinion. But if I found 2 or 3 windows, yeah, that's a major deficiency. Yeah. So it's something you may want to go back and ask for a price adjustment or for them to do something. Exactly. My job isn't there to help you get a price reduction.
But at least to buy a safe home.
But if there are major costs, the furnace is toast. So if the furnace is over 20 years old, it's considered the likelihood of failure high.
Okay.
It could be ready to be replaced. It could last another 10 years, but that could be a major expense, right? Between a furnace and an air conditioning, that would be considered a major deficiency. We go in the basement, there's water on the floor, and it's from a wall leak.
And I remember, do you remember one of our home inspection in Kitchener? Everything looked great until we get to the basement and we turn on the water.
Was that the shower?
Yes.
Okay.
At the shower, and it's not going. And we don't even know what happened there.
Okay, so a good example. So a shower in the basement, we're not able to scope out and see whether whoever put it in did the right plumbing. So we usually turn the shower on and we watch the flow. So the flow of the water should be faster. It should drain faster than it accumulates. In that case, the shower filled up right to the top.
Yes.
So I think I said to you, I don't know whether there's just some hair caught down in the bottom of the shower and it's going to be a 5-minute fix, or somebody didn't plumb it correctly.
Yes.
So it could be literally a $5 fix, or tearing the entire shower out for a few $1,000s with plumbing there. So we don't guess. We shouldn't guess. And I said to you before, I call it the crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball to be able to say it may, it may or it will, not function. You will have to have it fixed and whatever else. So we call it it is. So major deficiencies are really critical. And does that mean a person's not going to buy the house? No. It just means they're aware of what costs. And in some cases, depending on the market, they may go back for a price adjustment, which is fair. vermiculite in the attic.
Yeah, which we did actually recently.
We did the other week.
in
Vermiculite.
St. Catherine, I believe. Yeah.
Oh boy, when I see that, it may or may not contain small amounts of asbestos. 80% of the ones that I test are okay, but it still has a stigma.
Yes.
And
Let's talk about the stigma. And then we talk about aluminum and copper. Right?
So with vermiculite, I take 3 samples.
Yeah.
And I'm certified. You should be certified and insured to do any asbestos testing.
Okay.
So I'll take 3 samples, I send them to the lab. So I can't tell you whether it contains asbestos. They have to put it under a microscope and they look for the fibers, and there's all different types of asbestos, so they identify it. So you let the experts do their job. If the results come, which they did in that case, came back negative, so there were out of the I think there's 8 or 10 different types of asbestos they look for, none was found, none detected.
Yes.
Is the terminology. But that's only for those samples that I took.
That's true.
Now, for somebody topping up their insulation in their attic, most insulation companies, when they go in and they see it, they won't top it up until they have the test results.
Or remove it.
They are satisfied with those results, and they will go in and top it up. But my obligation is to the buyer, and I'll say, somebody is going to say to you, did you test all of it? Well, that's not practical. We're not going to test all. But, if you did 15 tests, which there's a cost to it.
Of course.
There's a chance that 1 or 2 may end up showing some signs of asbestos. Yes. So then somebody would say, well, that doesn't make sense, because if it all came from the same source, it should be the same. You're correct. But what if they had 4 or 5 bags from another site, from another vendor, that they had, and they threw them at the front of the house or in a different area,
and you didn't know?
And we
you
just happened that we didn't sample those.
Wow.
So that's the stigma.
Yeah.
So I usually will recommend that it is removed.
And I know that's what you recommended for my client as well.
It's going to bite you. You're going to sell the house 5, 10 years, even though you have the documentation. Somebody wiser is going to say, did you test it all? Is there a chance that there is some? And the answer is yes. There's always a chance. So
let's talk about buyers and sellers. Most of the home inspection have been done by buyers, because they are the one that want to buy. They want to be sure if what they're buying is good. But I've had some clients that sellers advise. I always advise them as well to do home inspection. In your own 15 years of experience, have you seen more sellers trying to do it even before they put their property in the market? Because to be honest, if I'm selling my property, I want to be sure that no one is coming in and telling me my property has something that I don't know about.
Yeah.
So do you advise sellers to actually do it before they list their property, or it's just not needed?
There's never really a straight answer. The market seems to dictate everything.
Okay.
So in the market, when you have a seller's market, you can put a house that is falling apart.
Yes, and they get it sold in 5 hours.
You're going to have 20 offers.
Yes.
And they're going to give you $100,000 over asking, and you just got rid of garbage.
Exactly.
Buyer beware. Okay? Now, in a buyer's market, you're going to see a lot more home inspections.
Yes.
But you're going to see a lot more pre-listing inspections.
Yes.
And there's a value to it. So there's a cost. Usually it's almost the same price, because it's exactly the same as a home inspection, except there's a few things added. But in an older house, it gives the seller an opportunity to deal with the deficiencies. So let's say you come up with 30 things, minors, majors, whatever. The buyer may say, I'm going to paint, I'm going to fix, I'm going to replace that receptacle that's cracked.
Yes.
And so they have the opportunity to take, out of the 30, they may eliminate 15 of them. I usually recommend that they leave them on the report and then put that it's been fixed.
Okay.
And that really shows that the seller is being proactive. And first, they got a pre-listing. They dealt with a lot of the problems on it.
Okay.
And that's a good thing. But the other thing is, if it's done correctly, the buyer has an opportunity to read the report and determine whether they feel confident.
Or not.
And there's a savings. They may elect not to do their own inspection if they're confident. And I always say, with the okay of the seller and the agent, I will talk to them. But if they just call me out of the blue, I won't, because the contract's between the seller and myself.
That's true.
So there are some benefits. So kind of in a roundabout way, would I do a pre-listing on every house? Absolutely. You're selling $1 million house.
And you don't know what is there.
I think you need to provide some kind of a documentation on the health and fitness of the house, regardless whether they use it or not. So absolutely. And that would, at one point we will talk a little bit about what are the minimum requirements that a home inspection should have. Not that they have to by,
Well, they should
it's
have
not
to
a code. We're not licensed. I've said to you before, when I started to do inspections, they said, oh, we're going to be licensed. 15 years later,
No
and I
license.
said I would retire before. I'm almost there. We're still not licensed, and I don't think we ever will be. So, but anyway, so that's the value. The other one that you didn't bring up was a pre-offer, which has a value.
Yes, I've used it, and I know you've helped me on that. I remember the deal in Cambridge.
Yes.
And I'm very, very happy we did that home inspection.
Yeah.
Because it's made the seller feel confident that we are actually serious to buy this property.
Yep.
We did a pre-offer home inspection. We went there. Everything was great. When we put in our offer, we don't have that condition in the offer. And that gave us, and I'm being honest, that's one of the reasons why we were able to get the property. Because at the time we got the property, it was like still kind of a seller's market. So the seller got, I think, like 10 offers. We are one of the top 3, but we are the only one that didn't put home inspection on the offer.
Yeah, but it can work
Because we've
against
done
you.
it. Because we've done it.
Yeah.
If we didn't do it, of course we'll put home inspection. But what I'm trying to say is the advantage of doing it before offer, especially because of the market.
Yes.
The market is the main reason. All the other home inspection we've done after that one, I think one more, we've always done it after we put in the offer.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
we
and
know we have the power.
That's probably the most common, but doing a pre-offer inspection, the disadvantage, and depending on how you look at everything, is you go in, and I've found this, we find some major deficiencies.
Okay.
And the buyer feels that they should ask for a price adjustment, and they should.
Yes.
Because the roof needs to be done, the furnace, the air conditioning, we found a major crack, we found some leaking, whatever. Good justification. We found vermiculite.
Yeah.
So justified to ask for a price adjustment. The other people that are putting offers in didn't do an inspection and have no idea.
Yes.
So depending on how you look at this, so the buyer asks for a price adjustment, the other ones don't.
And the seller will take.
Takes the other one. So the buyer didn't get the house. So is that a negative or a positive? I think that's
positive.
a positive.
It's positive. It happens to us, remember?
Yeah, so I think that's a positive because they didn't buy a problem house. But some may say, I really still wanted this house, but then you shouldn't have asked for a price adjustment. So a good agent's going to make them aware of that. But in my opinion, that if it truly is, you found some major deficiencies, and you feel you've overpaid, then don't buy the house.
Exactly. Because it helped us. What you just said now, the exact example you gave us. Yeah. Do you remember the one we just talked about, the basement shower?
Yeah.
We didn't get that property because we don't want to pay up to the price.
Right.
And someone that didn't do home inspection came with cash, paid cash, bought the property. My client was sad, but I told her, hey, listen, it's good that we did the home inspection.
I think so.
Because the person that bought the property, they didn't do the home inspection. They don't know what they're buying. I mean, I'm happy we got another property. The one we bought in St. Catherine was the same client. Yeah. But to be honest, I think the advantage of, especially for that deal, the person that bought it didn't do the home inspection, but they bought it cash. I mean, maybe they have experience in how they can fix every other thing. But my client don't have that experience, or they don't have that financial capability of doing it after they bought the property. So I'm glad for them.
It's funny you kind of bring that up. One of the first questions, other than meeting the buyer, I will ask, and I'm sensitive, I'll ask both, are you handy?
Yeah, I know.
And
you always
somebody
have that
will
question.
say to me, why do you ask that? Well, the way I can discuss any deficiencies found is different. Because if a person is handy, I may say to them, here's what I found. And if I was doing it myself, or you were doing it, this is a $5 fix. But now if you have to hire a contractor
To do it.
you could be paying 500 bucks.
Yeah.
So, and even, so if I go through a house and it has a lot of minor deficiencies, but to somebody that's handy and is going to do all the work themselves, it's like nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. And, some of them I'll do right away, some I won't do. But a person that's not handy, boy,
Yeah. They're gonna spend some
it
money.
can be a nightmare from, a loose railing to whatever. So I'm sensitive to that, and the discussion is slightly different.
Aluminum and copper wiring. I think it's common in Ontario or in Canada actually.
Yep.
People don't want to buy property that is aluminum wiring. And I know one of our home inspection, you've talked about it, but I want my, the audience, people that are watching or listening, I want them to know why there is this, negative stigma. There's this stigma when it comes to a home with copper wiring or aluminum wiring. What do you think about it? Can you just explain the difference?
So I'll try not to give my personal opinion.
Okay.
Somebody said, would you buy a house with aluminum wiring? I'm not going to answer that. But what I will say, if you really want the exact answer, you should talk to an electrician. But I will give you what I know. So in the 70s, cost of copper, whatever reason, they went to aluminum wiring. So it's 1 gauge thicker, heavier. It's a great conductor of electricity. All the power lines, it's light, are aluminum wiring. But there are some differences, and one of them is it's brittle. So if you nick it, if you nick 2 wires, you nick copper and you nick aluminum wiring. If you take the copper wire, you're going to be sitting there bending it back and forth for quite a while before it breaks. With aluminum wiring, maybe once or twice.
It's gone.
So if it was nicked during the installation and you're wrapping it around, it in theory could have broken it, but it's in contact. And that's where, even though in my entire life I've never personally seen it, where you can get some arcing and you could get a fire. That's one of the stigmas. The updating receptacles and switches and all that, they typically are the older style.
Okay.
So the newer style aren't rated for aluminum wiring. There is a pigtail convert that I do recommend you can do. It should be, my understanding, it has to be done by a master electrician, and there should be a certificate. The problem is they're done by electricians, no certificate. So when I see it, I have no way of verifying it, and I have to recommend that it has to be all redone because you don't know who did it. His brother, the homeowner and everything else, so you have to have evidence. So it's got more of a stigma like that. Some insurance companies, and the way I explain it is I go to an insurance company, I have a motorbike, and I go to an insurance company and say, I want you to insure my motorbike. And they, we don't insure motorbikes. Okay, so I go to a different insurance companies. Some insurance companies will not insure with aluminum wiring, so you go to a different one.
Okay.
Some insurance companies won't even ask; they just insure it. Others will want an ESA, so they want a safety inspection.
And some will have more premium because of that. Like it's going to be more expensive.
That I don't know, and so I really can't answer that. I just know that about 30% of roughly. Insurance companies won't. The other part of it, which is important to me, so I buy a house, it's got aluminum wiring, and I spend $100,000, kitchen, bathrooms, everything else, upgrading it. When I go to sell it, there is a good chunk of the market that as soon as you say aluminum wiring, they don't even want to look at the house.
That's true.
So you're at a disadvantage. You want the most buyers and everything else. So that's kind of almost getting into an opinion type thing, but there is a difference. It is perfectly acceptable. Aluminum wiring does not have to be torn out. Vermiculite, in a sense, doesn't have to be taken out if it's not disturbed.
Yeah.
Plaster may contain, older houses may contain asbestos. It would be encapsulated into the plaster. Stucco, we can go on and on and on about asbestos, but it doesn't. Nothing has to be done as long as it's not disturbed. But there's stigmas with it, and my job is to at least make them aware of it, that they don't come back and say, well, Gary, why didn't you tell me about this?
Canadian homes or homes in Ontario.
Yeah.
Which problem do you think you see the most when you do home inspection? Like when you see major deficiency, this is the most common one in Ontario. Because I believe you only practice in the GTA, so let me just use our area to ask that question. The most common one.
Okay, so I'm almost going to go on a little bit of a different angle. I'm going to say most houses, a lot of variation. We could talk forever. You can have a poured foundation, a block foundation. There is a wood foundation, plywood, all different types of foundation. There's a stone, century house. Most homes overall are structurally sound.
Okay.
On all. Are there some with major deficiencies and you have to spend? Yes. But most are good. But the most common are the wearing items. It's like if I said to you with your car, what are the things? It's going to be your brakes and tires.
Yes.
With the home, things that you are going to have to do regardless. So a foundation, maybe never. But roofs, shingles, they have a timeline.
Yes.
So depending on the types of shingles, did we have a storm? Did shingles blow off the roof? Things can happen, but you know at one time you will have to do the roof, okay? Furnace, it's not gonna last forever. Air conditioning.
Okay. You see them having more problems in many homes?
Sorry?
Do you see those problems more in many homes?
Oh yeah, because furnaces, there's still a lot of the old conventional furnaces out there, and you can't replace them with conventional, go with high efficiency. So yeah, furnaces, roofs, probably number one.
Okay.
Roofs ready to be replaced, lifting, curling, peeling. Furnaces, hot water tanks aren't usually as much of a problem because most are rented, which is okay. I'm okay with rentals. But we really should just really quickly talk about, do not rent a furnace, an air conditioning.
That's a question I'm supposed to actually ask you.
Types of filtration systems.
But we see that a lot these days.
Go into
renting furnace. Like, I don't get it. Why someone need to rent furnace?
I know why. It's because I don't have, first they come in, they do a great sales job, they sell you the best of the best of the best, and you're paying, a lot less for it, but you're going to pay 3 times as much. So that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
If I see a rental, if I see a furnace and I suspect that it's a rental, I will almost put it down as a deficiency. Yes. Highly recommend that it's bought out. I'm sorry.
Do you remember the deal in Pickering? That was exactly what happened. Yeah, they were renting the furnace.
So we talk about what's the value of having a home inspection?
That's the value.
Usually I'll say to the customer, you just paid for your home inspection.
Yeah. Do you know how much that furnace costs? Because we know it's been rented, we told the seller that they have to pay for it. And I think they paid about $13,000, and they've been renting it for almost 5 years. So I'm like, you're paying almost what you're going to pay even now if you're buying it, and then you've been paying a lot of money in the last 5-6 years. So I honestly don't know why people rent. I get it when they rent hot water rental. It's kind of common. It's still not the best thing to do, but it's common. But the furnace, AC is what I don't know why you have to rent.
There's a lot, yeah. So, and then another one, although they can last a long time unless they're the old, is windows. If they're the wood windows, eventually they're going to rot depending on the quality of them. But windows can last for, a lot of people say, I've got a double pane vinyl window, everything seems to work fine. How long are they going to last? Until you have a problem. They could last for almost ever. They can last a long time. So there's no reason to change something. I'm kind of old school. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Even a furnace. If you've got a high efficiency furnace, it's over 20 years.
It's still working. Just get yourself ready. It might stop working
90% efficient. You're going to go up to maybe 95, but if you do the math, you know what? Run that baby until it dies, and then do it. But if it's conventional at 80%, definitely consider within the next year or two of changing it.
Garry, let's talk about immigration. Because the reason why I want to mention this is in one of our home inspection, you mentioned that as part of what also have effect on your own industry. For real estate, immigration is one of those things that not only drive the price of the value, but drive the demand and also affect the supply. No matter how many homes we build now, there's demand for it, right? In your industry, do you think, because as I said, the conversation we had, you told me about people coming in are kind of epping out on the number of people that are doing home inspection or getting into home inspection business. Do you think immigration, if, let's say, Canada stop allowing immigrants to come into Canada, do you think that will affect?
If we stop allowing immigrants coming in again, we're in big trouble.
Okay. Why? Why do you think so?
Without getting political.
Yeah. I mean, no politics here. Why do you think so? Especially for your own industry.
Why? Sorry, why?
Why would you think if they stop immigrants? Because people out there, some people think they should stop immigrants. It's going to fix like a lot of problems.
So,
but what are the things you believe immigrants will still continue to help our country?
So we could be doing a lot of podcasts on talking about that, but I will give you my 2 cents worth.
Okay.
The world population and in Canada is dropping.
Yes.
We are not having children enough to replace ourselves.
Yes.
We have an aging population. I'm one of them.
I know why I asked you because you
mentioned
mentioned that.
turning and retiring, and therefore, who is going to do, everything? The big hole is the building industry,
Okay.
and that's really important. So I
Yes.
think when I went to high school, they had all the trades. I took them all, and I enjoyed them, but we have a shortage of skilled workers. And the only way that we're going, in my opinion, again, there's a lot of controversy, is going to be able to fuel the supply and demand is we need younger people coming to Canada in order to work and to fill all the gaps and all where we're retiring. Somebody's going to have to do the job, and a lot of things are changing. So I've got my opinions on that, but I'm a strong supporter of immigration, and that's going to drive. We're going to need housing. We're going to need the skill trade. If I was going through, and I've said to you earlier, I love talking to the young people and stuff like that. What are you going to do and stuff like that? Have you ever thought about an electrician, carpenter, builder? You can make a good living
from that.
You can even go. A lot of them spin off and get their own business. They have a small crew.
Yes.
But how are we going to build houses if we have no one to build them?
To build them, or ready to be in that trade.
Anyways, I hope that answers your question?
It does, because the reason why we were on that conversation during the home inspection was totally different. But when you bring that perspective of, even in your own industry, people are kind of getting old. I'm not trying to age you, like you.
I've worked hard to get here.
And you want people that would also come in, not just to replace you, but to take that industry forward, doing home inspection. I believe we strongly need immigration.
Yeah, the problem, and you kind of asked the question earlier about, would it be beneficial to have somebody spend time with you? From a business sense, the problem is in order to be successful in business without, again, we could do a podcast on business, you have to do a number of things correctly. So if you've done them correctly and you kind of know the secret to how you did that, you're now going to share that with somebody that you're going to mentor. And let's say, your idea is that they're going to work with you for a number of years and maybe even take over the business. But after a year or two, they figured out, I can go out and do this on my own. And I have not taken on anybody for that reason, because you're sharing a lot of secrets and trade secrets and how you did it and how you became successful. So it's a tough one. I think we need to do it.
Yes.
But you're at risk.
I think I think patience is one of the things that might want you to see if you want to do it or not. For me, I don't see competition in business. I think your own people will do business with you no matter what. When I call you, Garry, I have home inspection, I share your number with someone, they're like, yeah, I know Garry. I've heard about him. So people will start hearing about you no matter what. But I think passing down knowledge to, especially people that are ready to actually do the business or join you and not just do it for 1 year and then they want to run. Because as you said, doing business is not something you can just get quickly. I can't learn from you for 1 year and I think I get everything from you. No, I have to be there longer a little bit, and then you see that I'm trying to learn. I'm just not trying to take the skill and run away, right? So I think it's just you will need to pass the knowledge to the younger one at one point.
Yeah, you would have to want to do that. So the reality, as you move closer to retirement or you're retired, the reality is your energy and you just don't have the same amount of energy that you used to. In order to train somebody, you're committing. So you're going to be spending time in the field with them. So an inspection would take longer.
Yes.
You're going to be mentoring them, so you're going to have to share your stuff with them. You're going to have to probably spend hours training them. If there's, other than doing it for maybe it's the right thing to do, if there's not a cost benefit, sometimes the question would be why? Why are you doing that? And then the risk on top of that they're going to become your competition. So not that it's a good thing, but it's really an individual's choice whether you want to do that or not. And I don't know too many inspectors that do it. And it's a lot of it when I talk to them, because I did have backup until all my backup retired, that you typically choose not to.
Not so. Let me ask you a question, because I think we are about to, get to the end of the podcast. A lot of people want to get into home inspection. If I come to you today, apart from I don't have experience in building, but I want to do, because I know I've sent a couple of people to you that want to learn about it.
Right.
They want to ask you a question. Where would you say they should start from? Like an immigrant that doesn't have the experience of building in Canada, but want to get into this industry. What will be your advice for them? How can they start?
Okay. Two things since you've gone into that. Let me start off with what not required, but my opinion on what a home inspector should have. So I'm going to quickly run through that, and then I'll tell you what I tell everybody when they call me and they want to be a home inspector. So I'm a master inspector. Do you have to be a master inspector? No. If you're starting off, you're not going to have all the qualifications for that. But I always recommend that they're mold certified. Why? You're going to run into mold when you're doing an inspection. And if you're not certified and you don't have the equipment there to test, the buyer is on hold.
Okay.
And there's going to be almost another cost equal to the home inspection to bring in a mold specialist. Okay. So they just said, well, I just paid for a home inspector, and you don't do mold. You're not required to, but highly recommend it. In fact, all my backups, whenever I'm on vacation, they have to have mold.
Okay.
The second thing is asbestos. Why? Any older house, you're going to run into vermiculite. You're going to run into asbestos fibers. You're going to run into tiles. And again, with the permission, as I said when we were there, if you get permission to take samples, you can deal with them.
Okay.
I'm radon certified as well, although I do less of that. I'm commercial certified. And one of the most important things, and I do automatically, I almost forget about it, is thermal imaging.
Okay.
So without getting into thermal imaging, anybody can look it up, but in my opinion, you cannot do a home inspection without thermal imaging. So all that said and done, those are the minimum requirements that I feel the buyer should look for, as well as asking the home inspector, can you build me a house? However, if somebody says, Gary, I really, really want to get into it, what is the most cost effective?
Where should I start?
Where should I start? I belong, and I don't, I'm not here to advertise for them, but there's no benefit. I belong to Internachi in the U.S. And the benefits that I've found from there is literally everything you need
to get started.
To get started, mentors, as far as if you want to call them and discuss things, brochures, internet, free stuff from them. All the training that you need is free. Now, you have to membership. The membership's around, I'm going to say around 500 Canadian a year.
A year, okay.
It's around four something US. But I've been with them from day one, and I have been so happy with the support. I will talk to another person already doing inspection. They say, oh, I belong to this organization, and I've already spent 10 grand. And I said, stop. Now, I will back up. I didn't do my home inspection through Internachi. I took it through a course over weekends and stuff like that. I got my thermal imaging through a certified course that I attended. I got my mold. So I did it that way. But I was new to it, and I'm glad I did it that way. But I would
Not-
feel pretty confident that if you took the courses that are available, I think thermal imaging is, I know asbestos is not. So that's basically my recommendation. I point them to Internachi, and I said, call me if you
Yes,
have any questions, but otherwise deal with them. It'll be the best investment. And by
And you're not going to spend up to $10,000.
well, you're going to spend $500 a year. But I'm going to say, if after 1 year in taking all the courses and everything you need, you still want to be a home inspection, you're on the right path.
Okay.
But if you also say, you know what, this is crazy, it's just way over my head, you just only spent $500.
And do you think having a mentor like you or someone that's been in business for a long time, is it going to be helpful? I mean, definitely going to be helpful.
And it would be, you keep pointing, measuring, and that. So that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, if you can latch on to anybody with the knowledge for mentoring on anything in life, then do that. But it's not easy to get somebody that's willing to invest and to do the mentoring.
Before I let you go, I know you've gone as far as St. Catharines for me. Do you go that far, or is it because of me, you just decided to go there for Aziz? Do you go as far as St. Catherine, Niagara?
Oh, I cover a huge area.
Okay.
It's my company, so I cover Hamilton to Cobourg or further to Barrie.
Barrie.
There is an upcharge, and I usually try to be fair. Anything less than an hour drive, I try to. But no, I cover a big area.
Big area.
I just keep trying to cut it back, but the problem is, I've got agents that I've dealt with for so long, and they sell a house in Toronto, and the buyer's moving up to Timbuktu, and you know what? You feel obligated.
I get it.
And so therefore, I will do it. Not for everybody.
But you're going to do it with your own client
I
I've been there
for individuals.
So I know you're not a social media person. I've talked about this with you. You said no. But I know, how can people get in contact with you? Through your website, or
I would
how?
say through my website. It's an easy thing. It's gdhinspect.com.
I'm going to put that in the description
Yeah,
of the podcast.
I will always, as you know, I'm always a half hour early, and I will always answer my phone.
I know.
But, you know, I will always give some time, but if somebody's looking for the mentoring, that would be a real long conversation. It'd be more or less somebody saying, Gary, when are you thinking of retiring? Well, a year or two. And you know, I really would like to, you know, take over the business, maybe something like that. And I'm not here trying to even do that, because I don't really need to do that. But you know, I'll always point somebody. But if they've listened to this podcast, I've already told them, go to Internachi, type it in the computer. That's where I'm going to give you direction as far as to go. After our half-hour conversation, that's where I'm going to point you.
All right. Gary, I really appreciate your time today. I know you've shared a lot of things with people, and I think the knowledge and your experience shows in whatever you do. You've done a lot of home inspections for me, and it has always saved my client either money or time, or let them go to another deal to look for another property. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. Anytime.